The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
There'll be spectacle, there'll be fantasy, there'll be daring do and stuff like you would never see.
Be a movie, yeah, we're gonna be a movie,
Starring everybody
and me. There'll be heroes bold, there'll be comedy, and a lot of fuss that ends for us real happily. Be a movie, we can watch it all develop, starring everybody
and me. We'll take the world and set it on its ear.
Come on, join in. We're gonna start right here.
And we are going to start right here. Hello, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting Premier Podcast Triple Feature. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, in his junkyard dog cosplay,
I am here of my own free will.
Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Kunta Kinte Winfree. How do you do, sir?
You went into a weird place with that one.
You're the one that showed up in chains.
Yes, this is how you dragged me here.
in chains?
In chains.
All right, tonight we are...
I am none of these, Mark. None of these. Of my own volition, what I have ever watched.
You know, well, that's the funny thing. So we're talking The Last Showgirl starring Pam Anderson, Anora starring Mickey Madison, a Sean Baker film, and Emilia Perez starring Zoe Saldana, Selena Gomez, and let me get the actress's name right, Carla Sofia Gasson. And at least two of these, Anora and Emilia Perez, are on the short list for Best Picture.
Of course they are, because that's the dumb culture we live in.
These are all they all competed for prizes across various film festivals. Many of them won said prizes. So
hang on, the fan contingent for Emilia Perez getting incredibly butthurt on Twitter when The Substance won in this category was the funniest meltdown I've seen in a while.
You pay a lot more attention to that sort of thing than I do these days.
I follow a few people who follow that kind of stuff for work, so I get a lot. Okay. So my residual feed gets to be a fair amount of it. Plus, gotcha. you send me all kinds of entertainment news related things, which winds up warping the algorithms for what I've clicked on.
Gotcha. Yeah, I got off. Not that I got off. I still have an active Twitter account, but just some inside baseball here. There came a point where, in order for you to promote this, the feed, so that people could watch it on Twitter, which was a large part of where our audience used to come from, because people used to watch our show on Twitter. And then after, I think Elon Musk took it over and did some stuff to it, you now have to pay for that sort of thing. And I went, well, that's the end of that. So I don't have a job anymore where I can spend all day on Twitter in between patients. So I don't get to see as much of that sort of thing. So I had no clue people were reacting to Emilia Perez versus The Substance, or The Substance versus Emilia Perez at all.
I can't express to you how giddy I am that The Substance was nominated in that category now, because those insufferable jackasses got nothing.
Good. So we're talking Anora, The Last Showgirl, and Emilia Perez. One, because again, it's Oscar season, and I've learned over the last 2 years of doing this because of Alexis, to try to schedule as many reviews as possible of stuff that might get nominated for Best Picture, so that I'm not having to cram like a college student the night before we do our Oscar show.
That's what we did last year, and boy, was that a thing.
Yeah, it was like I think I always end up having to watch like 3 or 4 movies that we've not reviewed, and I haven't seen at all. Like at least like last year, I had at least seen Poor Things, but I hadn't seen Zone of Interest. There was another one I hadn't seen yet. So I'm like having to rush and get to all of these before.
Yeah, last year, like when they released the 10 nominees, like you and I had seen, I think prior to our cram session for that, we'd seen 3 of them.
Yeah. And then we did a triple feature with another 3, and then and so we were close to having seen them all, but there was a bunch at the end that we had to watch. So I'm trying to pepper these in ahead of time. Also, I've talked about how we used to just be kind of a take the temperature of pop culture podcast, and because of Alexis, because of boredom, because of interest, because a variety of things, we started looking at the vast array of films out there, many of which were these type indie features, stuff that was passed around through film festival competitions, things like that. So part of this, so the other thing here is I link these 3 together because they do feature women in title roles. There's a through thread of kind of like what we talked about with The Substance, of what society does, expects of women, does to women, how society tends to discard women.
Hang on, as a minor pushback, that is least prevalent in Anora, so everyone understands.
I was going to say it's least prevalent in Emilia Perez.
No. We'll get to that.
Yeah, so we will absolutely talk about that. So, just as a last thing, and then we'll get into these films because I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to run long if I don't get started soon. Robert has not seen The Last Showgirl. I saw The Last Showgirl over the weekend.
So again, so everyone understands, I am willing to make a lot of sacrifices for this endeavor. When the nearest showing I can find is a 30-minute one-way drive, I'm sorry, that's a little bit beyond what I'm willing to commit to this.
So I told Robert, I was like, when it comes to like PVOD or streaming somewhere, I don't know who's getting roadside attraction stuff these days, which is the company that did The Last Showgirl. But I said when it's available to stream, it's worth a watch. I'll talk about it momentarily. Pam Anderson is worth watching in this movie, but yeah, I wasn't gonna hold a gun to his head and make him go see The Last Showgirl. So I will talk about The Last Showgirl somewhat briefly.
No, that was the other. The Last Showgirl, I think, is the one I would have been most interested in watching out of this trio.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You brought out the big guns for the other 2. And
okay. So let's get into it really quick. The Last Showgirl is a 2024 American drama film directed by Gia Coppola. You don't know who Gia Coppola is. She is a member of the Coppola family.
Clearly,
the last Coppola did Megalopolis. Blah. She is the granddaughter of Francis Ford Coppola. She made her directorial debut with Palo Alto in 2013. She since directed Mainstream in 2020 and now The Last Showgirl in 2024. It stars Pamela Anderson, Jamie Lee Curtis, Billie Lourd, Dave Bautista, yes, that Dave Bautista, Brenda Song, and Kiernan Shipka. Plot focuses on a middle-aged Las Vegas showgirl who is faced with an uncertain future after learning that the revue she has performed for 3 decades is scheduled to close. The screenplay was adapted by Gersten from her own play, Body of Work, which she based on her visits to the Jubilee show shortly before its closure in 2016. I'm going to do this now. It won the San Sebastian International Film Festival. It won. Pam Anderson won the Zurich Film Festival. It won the Newport Beach Film Festival. Won the SCAD Savannah Film Festival, the Miami Film Festival. It's kind of skipping down here. It was nominated but did not win a Gotham Award. It won a whole bunch of other film awards here. Nominated for a whole bunch. I'm winning. Okay, yeah. There's a pending Critics' Choice Award, and a pending Screen Actors Guild Award. Not seeing. Okay, it was nominated for Best Original Song and Best Actress in a Motion Picture Drama at the Golden Globe. So as I was telling Robert, it's more than likely Pam Anderson's going to get nominated for Best Actress. I don't think she'll win, but she's going to get nominated for The Last Showgirl. This is not most likely going to be nominated for Best Picture. In short, The Last Showgirl is, as I said before, is about a elder
Showgirl
dancer in a revue. The revue is shutting down, and this is sort of the last days of this revue. This particular character gave up raising her daughter so that she could be in this show. The daughter is now college age and is coming to visit her mother. There's a lot of just sort of seeing what this show is and how it's performed and kind of what the girls go through in order to put it on. There's the tacit recognition that this is all that the Pam Anderson character gave her life to, and it's going away, and she's scrambling to find something to replace it with. And she runs afoul of the fact that she is an older woman and not quite what a lot of shows are looking for, and she kind of has nothing else. Not to mention the fact that the daughter makes a judgment on, like, this is what you gave up being a parent for, to dance topless at in a Las Vegas show. Why would you do this? There's a reveal. There's a reveal that Bautista is actually her father, which she does not know, and they actually do not ever connect in the movie. Jamie Lee Curtis plays one of Pam Anderson's friends, and there's a whole thing where she's a cocktail waitress, and she has a gambling problem and a drinking problem, and at some point she ends up on Pam Anderson's couch going, "I've lost everything and I need help." It ends with, it ends with the very last performance, and you get to see Pam Anderson do her thing on stage. But along the way, there's a lot of conversations about, like, I understand that not everyone accepts this choice that I've made. I understand that people think I should have made different choices and that I risked a lot to do all of this, but I love this show. I loved performing in this show. I see the value in it, and for me, it was worth the sacrifices. Which doesn't do her a whole lot of good in, these golden years of her life where she's sort of looking into the abyss and seeing there's nothing out there for her. It's the best summation of the movie I can give without giving a plot detailed recitation, which I don't really want to do. It's on Wikipedia, read it. Or here, better yet, go see the movie. Pam Anderson is fucking great in this thing. This is like the role she was born to play, because I think, if you think about Pam Anderson as an actress, it was very much like, come on, lady, you're here for the boobs, you're here for the pretty face, you're here for the blonde hair. And once those things, once we didn't want those things anymore, we didn't want her either. It's a hell of a thing to tell somebody. Your value is in your looks, your value is in your body shape. You have no other value besides that. You as a person have to live with that. Live with that message that society is beaming at you with bright lights, and what that does to a person. And then then you turn that around and you're like, well, you as an actress, you as a performer, like, what do you want those people to do? Do you want them to not want to? Do you not want people to want to be performers? Do you not want them to want to act, to want to sing, to want to dance? It's funny, we want people to give us entertainment, and then we shame them and we punish them for having done so, and then we throw them away. And we tend to, I've been saying this a lot lately, both professionally and personally, the tendency to objectify people. They are here to satiate our need. They are here to give us what we want. And when we don't want it anymore and we don't need it, we throw them away as if they're not people. The net effect of what that does to somebody's psychology, I think, is interesting, to say the least. Pretty horrifying, as a matter of fact. And a lot of that comes out in Pam Anderson's performance. There's a couple of really great scenes that she has. It's really funny. There's at one point she goes to dinner with Bautista, and he actually says to her at some point, he was like, well, did you ever think about not being in the show? Maybe there was a different way to do this. He was like, and she's like, oh, what the fuck? Now you're gonna judge me for doing this? The guy who has not only run this show for as many years as he has, but is going to continue running another show with this very same casino. Like, none of this is affecting you. You got to not be a dad, and you get to keep your job. Meanwhile, my life is falling apart, and you sit there and you have to judge me. It's a really great scene. And
you might
go ahead.
consider taking advice from someone whose life has not been as perilous as yours, but hey, that's just me.
I mean, look, I think if you had seen the movie and you kind of came away with a different perspective, there's grist for the mill for debate. No doubt about that. I am giving you my take on it. I'm not saying there are no other ways to look at this and no other perspectives. Jamie Lee Curtis, if I could just talk about some of the craft elements. Jamie Lee Curtis's performance in this, like, is a reminder that she's one of the best actresses of our age. Like, the woman has such good chops.
Which is kind of funny considering she reminded us of that like 2 years ago with her supporting role in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Well, it's funny because she was just in Borderlands, and it's like it's funny what a bad movie can do to somebody.
Boy, isn't it?
You know, sometimes you can take a great actress, give them shit material, and that shit material does bring them down. Like, there's nothing they can do with this, and you think in isolation they're like a bad actress because of it. Then there's a movie like The Last Showgirl, where Jamie Lee Curtis reminds you she's stellar. She's so good in this. She brings so much to the role. Maybe you feel sorry for her, maybe you don't. I can't speak to everyone's individual perspective, but I found myself. I'm sympathetic to the point they're trying to make through Pam Anderson's character. I'm not as sympathetic to Pam Anderson's character. I was sympathetic to Jamie Lee Curtis's. Like, I genuinely felt bad for her. It's shot interestingly enough. It's kind of a grainy filter on it. You kind of feel like, again, like this is an old film, and it's 20. Shot
trying to get the 70s vibe across in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I would say, say something bad about this film, Mark, or none of us will be able to sleep tonight if you and Robert don't shit on something. All right. There's not really a story here. It's the last days of.
You said that's another trend that kind of emerged, I think, like out of some people's minds post-pandemic, is just, well, why do I need a story? Let me just give you a window into this thing.
Yeah, that's kind of it. It's like we peeled back the curtain on what happens to an old sex symbol, and then we run out of minutes, and we shut the curtain, and you go home. I think I said, I don't remember which show it was, where I kind of did the thing with the cup. It was something that had to be, Alexis had to be on it because she's the one that made the joke about, like, your cup's disappearing. But I think I said something to the effect of, like, I want to show you this cup. Okay, well, are you saying anything about the cup? Not really. I just wanted to show it to you. I want you to know that it exists. That's kind of The Last Showgirl. And so
kind of
I think
Anora
people,
too, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, definitely Anora. I think there's I think there's a value in kind of showing you this world, because I think for most of us it's an alien world, and film is really, really good about bringing us to alien places. But I think that's, I don't know. I was doing a lot of in my head comparisons to from The Last Showgirl to The Substance, because it deals with a lot of the same stuff. Aging, society's view of beauty, demand of beauty, and then discard of what it feels is no longer beautiful. It's funny. I was thinking a lot about how we create different entertainment experiences because there's a market for it, and society gives no fucks about what that does to the people in it, and whether or not they'll survive the experience. I think taking a position on it is an interesting one, and one worthy of viewing. I don't know if it's going to have a lasting impact on people. I don't even know if Gia Coppola, Gia Coppola's wish with this film is to change the vast hearts and minds of those who want disposable culture. I think people will watch The Last Showgirl and go, "Oh, isn't that sad?" and then will go on about their lives. I think
The Wrestler.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, but The Last Showgirl and The Wrestler had a lot in common.
I did not bring that up by accident.
Yeah, it's very similar in tone and its bleakness. I think the only difference is Mickey Rourke's character in The Wrestler was sort of a grumbling, subdued, kind of, internally agonizing person. as opposed to Pam Anderson, who's sort of throwing a tantrum about I gave you, it's kind of like a Judy Garland, at the end of Judy kind of a thing. Like, you'll remember me, won't you? Like, shaking people, strangling them. Like, you'll remember me, won't you? I gave you everything you wanted. I gave up so much for you. I threw myself into this and destroyed my brain in the process. You'll remember me, right? No, we won't, unfortunately.
Probably not, because certain things are not worthy of your time and effort to that degree, and putting the wrong thing first in your life is going to lead you nowhere good. This has been proven time and time again. And
so, would I recommend The Last Showgirl? Yeah, I mean, if you've got a theater near you and an hour and a half to kill, I support independent movies. I think this is 90 minutes of your time, and I think reward the movie for its short runtime.
We're going to be talking about The Brutalist in the near future, and I think Mark and I will both be pining for this kind of brevity.
I consulted the parents' guide to that. I actually can't show that to my kids. It's got stuff in it I don't want them to see. So I will be attempting to see all 9 hours of The Brutalist by myself.
You couldn't get your kids, or any kids these days, mind you, to sit still for 3.5, almost 4 hours. I don't know that I'm going to want to sit still for 4 hours and watch that thing.
Like, just by the end of it, you're like, all right. So that's The Last Showgirl. If you don't have any other comments on it, I'm going to leave it be.
I'm happy to leave it there because I would need more specifics to have formulated a more coherent opinion on it. So,
okay. I think that's the last thing I'll say about it. It's got an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. A wistful showcase for Pamela Anderson in a refreshingly dramatic role. The Last Showgirl pays homage to the working class of Las Vegas with its superb collection of performances. Russell Falcon positively compared the film's themes to those of The Substance, opining that both films observe the prices women pay for their beauty and career. Local punching bag for Damn You Hollywood, Stephanie Zastrick named Anderson's performance as one of 10 best of 2024, which I would agree with, writing that her Take Me As I Am face intensifies both the vulnerability and the defiance she brings to the role. Writing out of the film's world premiere, RogerEbert.com's Mariah E. Gates praised Anderson for her nuanced performance. Sheila O'Malley also compared Anderson to Judy Holliday, further writing, and so comeback isn't the right word at all for Anderson's performance, one of the best of the year. Her performance is an inadvertent indictment of an industry who pumped her up while simultaneously devaluing her, barely considering her an actress at all. Nobody could play Shelley the way Anderson plays it, citing Pamela Anderson's turn as Shelley as one of the 10 best performances of the year. And the Boston Globe's Odie Henderson writes, Anderson gives the kind of lived-in performance that proves the actor knew her character inside and out. Yeah, like I said, this is like the character she was fucking born to play.
Easy to just play yourself on screen.
It's a little more than that, but okay.
I'm being a little bit blithe about that. I'm aware. But...
and dismissive, but whatever. All right, speaking of...
I mean, again, I can joke about that, but it's also not easy to be yourself on screen, so,
I mean, it takes a lot to be that vulnerable. People spend an enormous amount of their psychological energy, not being that vulnerable. Out of fear, out of anxiety, out of, a need to project an air of security and toughness that isn't really there. So for her to go and do The Last Showgirl and be like, this is me. This is me with a different name and a different set of circumstances. I'm going to go ahead and say that that's brave of Pamela Anderson. For an actress that people don't take seriously and mock, to be vulnerable on a stage like this, I would say she deserves credit, not to be mocked. But that's me.
I don't disagree with you. It's more, how do I phrase this? It's more a type of performance that I think gets a little bit overblown. This is the role that so and so was born to play. Like, yeah, it's kind of just their life. Like I'm not saying what they're doing is not difficult, and I'm not saying it deserves to be mocked. I'm saying, I'm a little bit more impressed by people who can reach than by people who can go that far inward. So
yeah, I'll go ahead and agree with that. I think when you can create a character and a performance, it goes a little bit further than you just kind of doing the Stone Cold Steve Austin of this is my personality on 10.
Yeah. Completely.
Speaking of a personality on 10, Anora.
Oy.
Boy.
Do you want me to do the plot synopsis to this one because you kind of had to handle The Last Showgirl?
Yeah, just because I've been talking a lot and I want you to talk a little bit. But let me go ahead and say this. Robert goes to me. He goes, "You're going to really like Anora, and I know why you're going to like Anora." And I went into it, and I knew what it was because I know Sean Baker. Let me do the demographic stuff here, and then I'll finish that thought. Anora is a 2024 American comedy drama film written, directed, and edited by Sean Baker. It follows the beleaguered marriage between Anora, who's played by Mickey Madison, a young sex worker, and Vanya Zakharov, who's played by Mark Edelstein, the son of a Russian oligarch. Nobody cares about the rest of the cast. I will get into a lot of the award stuff at the end. Suffice to say, I just wanted to let you know who Sean Baker is. Sean Baker, I knew him from him directing Red Rocket, which we did a review of a couple years ago. He's also known for The Florida Project from 2017, Tangerine, Starlet, Prince of Broadway, Takeout, and he was the writer, director, and editor, not producer. The rest of these, he's writer, director, producer, and editor. He did not produce Four-Letter Words. So
he's got a very specific style.
He's won an Independent Spirit Award. He's won a bunch of different Film Critics Awards. He won a Palme d'Or for this, actually.
Yeah.
He won. He's been nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Director and Best Screenplay for Anora. So that's Sean Baker. All right. To finish my thought, and then Robert can get into the plot synopsis. So he's like, you're gonna like this movie, and I know why you're gonna like this movie. And I went into it going, since I know what this is, and I know the kind of stuff that Sean Baker does. So, like I said, I'd watched Red Rocket. Red Rocket was about a retired coming home, back to his home, porn actor. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, well, Sean Baker really likes to take the sort of, under the brick kind of people, just the ne'er-do-wells of the world, and share their stories with us, because their stories, while seem alien, are actually resonant. We can see ourselves in these people despite their shitty as hell circumstances. So I went, okay, I know what I'm getting with Sean Baker. I kind of know what Anora is. And then I'd read a little bit about it. I'd heard other critics talk about it on their podcast. And I went, all right, I am well prepared for this. And I've seen it win all kinds of awards, and everyone's just fucking glowing about Anora. I got my friends who do podcasts, talk about movies, going, oh my God, when are you going to talk about Anora? And I watched it. You ever just, and I know Robert knows what this is like. I'm about to say this, and he was like, you ain't just whistling Dixie, Buster. You ever just find yourself completely out of step with the rest of the world?
All the time.
You're just like, I don't understand why. And so I get to the end of Anora, and I was thinking about Robert going, I know you're going to love this, and I know why you're going to love this.
Did I say love? Hang on, I really, I don't remember if I said love or not. I said you'd like it.
Yeah. And when it was over, I just thought to myself, like, I know why Robert thinks this of me, and he's not completely off base, but this is not what I like. So with that said,
I also know why I could have. When we talk about Emilia Perez, I can very succinctly explain why I think it resonated with you, but we'll get to that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Anora follows a stripper and a whore, by which I mean she takes money for sex.
So Anora's about this piece of shit.
You made the value judgment. I made an accurate description.
Sex worker, Robert. Sex worker.
I refuse to bend the knee to your PC bullshit.
Sex worker.
You take money for sex, you're a whore.
please call the woman a prostitute. I don't want to deal with hate mail.
Okay, prostitute. All right, fair enough.
Thank you.
So this prostitute and stripper,
There we go.
and all-around degenerate, Brooklynite, but I repeat myself. Sorry, I shouldn't dump on all of Brooklyn. I'm gonna get hate mail for that. Okay, anyway, that's my jokes aside. That's my jokes done for this. So she's working at a strip club and is dragged off of her break by the person in charge of this establishment saying, "You speak Russian?" Like, yeah, a little. Fine, go entertain this Russian kid. He spends a lot of money. So she spends the evening with him. He hires her for a later trysts. They spend a fair amount of time together. He is the son of some, as Mark mentioned, a big Russian oligarch. So he's got more money than he knows what to do with, which he spends on hookers and blow. I wish I was joking about that, but that's kind of what he does. And they spend a bit more and more time together, and then they fly off to Las Vegas. They get married somewhat spontaneously because he doesn't want to go home, and his parents, again, they're Russian, are kind of after him to stop being such a child and to get a job and all that fun stuff. So his response is, well, if I get married, then I can stay here because I marry a U.S. citizen. I become a naturalized citizen, right? And then I can tell my parents to piss off. So they get married. They go back. They get married in Vegas. They go back to New York. She leaves her crappy living situation and moves in with him. And then about that same time, all the goons from the Russian oligarch start getting wind that, hey, maybe he got married and there's rumors about him dating this prostitute. And that's embarrassing to the family. So we get our Three Stooges routine for the rest of this movie, basically, where a couple of goons show up at his house to try and figure out whether or not there's any truth to this. They determine there is truth to this. He runs away like a pansy. This poor, hapless, bald guy named Igor, and I was desperately waiting for one of them to go, it's pronounced Igor, especially for after a conversation they have later, restrains her. A priest from an Eastern Orthodox church who's in the vicinity comes over because he's more beholden to the Russian gangster than he is to his faith. There's a bunch of yelling. If you've seen a Jerry Springer episode, you've seen how this kind of goes. And they then spend the evening driving around New York looking for this ne'er-do-well Russian teenager. And he's more than a teenager. I mean, this ne'er-do-well Russian. Eventually, they find him. They go to try and get the marriage annulled. They find out it was in Vegas. They got married in Nevada, so they have to go to Nevada to get it fixed. And now this poor priest, I think his name was Toros, like, oh no, we can't hide this anymore. I can't just fix this. Now your mother and father are going to actually be here, and their parents arrive, and they're terrible. And right around then is when the big, like, emotional hammer is supposed to drop that this kid doesn't actually care for Anora. He was just having fun on his last trip in America, and she gets pissed at him because he's not been sincere at all, at which point I just have to go, you're a prostitute and you really thought this was how this was going to go? You can't possibly be this stupid. They fly to Nevada, get the marriage annulled. They fly back home. She gets a $10,000 payout for her troubles. Then in the scene in this movie that had me laughing almost as much as anything else I've seen all year, as she is going to have her stuff dropped off by this sort of low-level enforcer for this family, she then initiates sex with him.
Hang on. He retrieved the wedding ring, the engagement ring that she got, that was worth a considerable amount of money that the mother took back because she's a whore and doesn't deserve it, quote unquote. And he's like, and you're skipping over an entire conversation that they have. Not that I want to.
I'm willing to talk about that later because that I actually do like their conversation in the house. But
there's a conference. Well, it sets up the ring thing. That's the only reason why I mentioned it.
It does.
There's a conversation that they have the night before where they kind of bond, but not really. At which point he sees her as something more than an object of lust, and sees her as a person. So he does something kind for a person that he thinks deserves a bit of kindness. And she, not knowing what to do with that, does the only thing she can do, like an animal, and goes to have sex with him. And then when he doesn't treat her like a suppository, and she's like, "Oh God, you think I'm people?" She cries.
Yes, I could not stop laughing through that final scene, and I felt like a terrible person because I know I'm supposed to be feeling about this.
You're such a ghoul. Why would you laugh at that?
I don't know, because I couldn't take this movie seriously. Like this is the problem. Hang on, you and I have this problem. Like you told me a little bit before, and like your reaction to this is all just a bunch of people I know doing things I've seen them do, so kind of shrug.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people like this, and I can't do anything but laugh at their chronic bad decisions, because if I don't, I'm going to go insane. It will absolutely drive me up the wall if I can't find the humor in this. And it doesn't help. Again, there's so much of this that just wants to be taken very, very seriously. But I'm watching this movie, and Jerry Springer episodes keep springing into my head because of how everyone talks, how everyone does nothing but yell over each other, the weird physicality that's like, we don't actually want to show violence, but we're going to imply some weird. And then there's a slip and fall routine, and a guy who's concussed, and there's a running gag about how concussed he is for about 40 minutes. Oh man, the light's hurting my eyes. Well, don't throw up in the car. Like just that kind of thing, and you're telling me I'm not supposed to laugh at this?
Okay. It's not. It's a good movie, and depending on who you are as a person and what you define as entertaining, it could be seen as entertaining. I am baffled by the Best Picture.
I'm kind of okay. No, I remember my comparison here. Okay. Do you remember where you were with Past Lives and its nomination?
Yes, very much.
That's kind of where I am with Anora.
Okay.
Like there's a bunch of praise being heaped on this, and like if I squint real hard, I can see it, but in general, I don't.
So let me talk about some of the craft elements here, because I think there's two discussions to be had. And the craft element speaks to whether or not this should have been nominated for Best Picture. I think in terms, my reaction to it at the end when I was over, because I think we've talked about this before. We all share a group chat with each other, those that come on the podcast. And some of us will live react to certain things. You know, if Andrew and his son are watching Skeleton Crew, we will get live reactions of his reaction to Skeleton Crew as he's watching it with his son. You know, if Robert's watching something that I put a gun to his head and made him watch, we would get live reactions to Robert. You know,
I have tried very hard to limit. I've tried very hard to limit myself to like 3. I'll give myself 3 things I'll type out as a reaction. If that's it.
And so my reaction to Anora was the following. This is a very human movie, and the dialogue is very real. This is how people talk to each other. These are things people say to each other. I don't know. It wasn't stylized in any way. It felt almost guttural. You know, if I could very much put myself in the rooms of this movie, and I wouldn't feel like I was part of a dramatic conversation. I would feel like I was part of an everyday people conversation. I don't love a lot of repetition, but I am around people who feel the need to repeat everything. And I know that is part of people's rhythm and cadence and how they speak. So the amount of repetition in this movie, while it drove me up the fucking wall, was very real. It kind of reminded me of Jodie Comer and how in her speech and cadence and rhythm from the Bike Riders, which I was praised, so I would be remiss if I didn't praise it here. Mickey Madison, I think, gives a almost unhinged, realistic performance of somebody of that kind of person.
I think I said this to you before, but it's really difficult to play this kind of person and not have them stray into, boy, I wish you'd get hit by a bus.
Yeah. I think she gives a very honest and very real, and I said very guttural performance. I also think she, you know, I said the line before, and and Robert had to sort of bite his hand. Sex work is real work. I told Robert before the show started tonight, I'm not having a side moral debate of people's behaviors and whatnot in the culture. It'll distract too much from what I really want to talk about, which is these movies. So I'm not going to now that I've muzzled Robert, I'm not going to go ahead and do that, and he has to just sit there and watch me do it. But I will say that there's a tendency, much like in The Last Showgirl, to look at people in either sex communities or sex work and go, they're not real people. They're objects of lust. They're objects of need. They're objects of salaciousness. They are disposable people, and that's not nice. we all people are people. And I think what the movie
niceness is overrated.
Alrighty. Damn it. I think that the point that Sean Baker is trying to make with this movie is just that. It's that we tend to regard certain elements of our culture as objects and disposable, and they're not. They're people with thoughts and feelings and dreams and needs and wants and boundaries. And how do we navigate that? Poorly, as it turns out. And
well, if you navigated it well, it would make for a poor story.
I think just in society we navigate it.
Oh, absolutely that. But just since we're talking about entertainment,
so I think Madison does a really great job of portraying all of that in her character. I think she does at a minimum a passable job of eliciting sympathy from an audience that isn't naturally there to give it to her. The kid playing the Russian sucks. Like, he's an awesome actor, and he plays the character with that sort of detached deliriousness, stupidity, and immaturity that is also, I think, resonant in our culture and something that I would be railing against if I didn't want to obey my own rules of this podcast. So suffice to say, I think the actor playing him does an outstanding job of playing a complete, heartless, worthless dipshit. My favorite character in this thing is the kid who plays Igor. Yura Borisov as Igor. He is the heart and fucking soul of this movie. He
does a lot of very quiet acting in this, and I say that as a compliment.
Well, also, going back to that final scene, he is there to do a job, and he's doing it to the best of his ability. And it's so funny because there's a lot of discussion about what is humane treatment. She's going, you assaulted me, and he's like, you were out of control. Funny, I said this to Melissa. Melissa and I were having a conversation earlier by text, and I said, let me see if I pulled the exact line, because I thought it was a fair bit of genius, if I do say so myself. I said, truth has a way of reflecting someone's agenda at the time. And there's a lot of her having an agenda of, and being from this point of view of, I'm in the right, I am owed,
I'm owed, and I am clearly the victim of all of this.
Right, and he's going, you're an animal, you were hurting people, possibly yourself, and I felt the need to restrain you for your own safety.
You assaulted me. No, I restrain. Like, he actually doesn't dispute a handful of things. Like, no, I never hit you. I restrained you. You knocked.
She is not harmed at any point in this movie. She is not punched. She is not hit. She has at some point restrained against her will, and in that sense, yes, she is hurt that way. But believe me, there's a lot worse ways to harm somebody in just restraining them. And they are like cops. They are like taking great care to not harm this wild Wolverine. Meanwhile, she breaks
knocks out, like, nearly knocks out one guy.
Yeah,
gives who just loses her mind.
Yeah,
he's like, no, I restrained you. That's all I did. Shrug.
She bites two guys. She scratches out one of them.
Did she brain one of them with a vase or something like this?
Yeah, there's like several pieces of furniture that get broken. And again, the whole time, and you gotta understand why they're there. They're there because they have to bring the boy back to Russia. They're not there for her. I don't give a shit about her. But she, kind of like,
she has complicated things.
Well, she kind of like half believes they're in a real marriage and half doesn't want to lose her, $1 billion meal ticket. And she is. It's one of those things I hate about our current culture is this idea that if I scream my truth loud enough, you'll believe, you'll also then believe what I'm saying is true.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you screaming it doesn't make it any more true. So just real quick, back to the craft, and then I gotta answer someone's text here real quick. But the performances are all good to great. The cinematography, I think, is competent to good. This also has no fucking story. This is kind of just, the first half of this movie is watching a rich person adopt a pet and for a sex worker to be a willing pet. And then when this arrangement is blown apart by reality and the expectations of adulting, everyone loses their fucking mind. And you're right, then it becomes a sort of madcap chase through the street. And then it ends with, the sort of sobering conclusion of, you put it, stupid people playing stupid games. I choose to look at it more as, as reality in interfering in fantasy. We've talked about this with other podcasts.
That's a very weird way to put that. For the record.
Well, the two of look, there's the fantasy of that this girl is my girlfriend. She's not. You paid her. There's this fantasy of this guy loves me. He doesn't. He wants a pet. And we're gonna live happily ever after is also a fantasy. When, as he puts it, he owns none of this. It's all his parents, and he is kind of here sowing wild oats. And he is expected to go back to Russia and do whatever it is this family does. And he's trying to, stay in Neverland for as long as possible. And then in the vein of in the guise of the parents showing up, reality comes crashing in and bursts everything apart. And then these characters who were so firmly entrenched in their fantasy now have to deal with that reality. And it hurts and it bites and it squeezes and it leaves them kind of breathless in pain on the floor. Anora, everybody.
Yeah, and again, I phrased this movie as watching as another example of the axiom of play stupid games, win stupid prizes. If you're the heir to a Russian oligarch's billionaire empire, then spending a bunch of money on a hooker for a couple of weeks and then getting married spur of the moment in Las Vegas is a stupid game, and you're only going to get a stupid prize at the end of it. And if you're Anora, this utterly immature person you've seen do more drugs than Mick Jagger, who does nothing but play video games all day when he's not moderately entertained by the idea of having sex with you, is not a serious person. And consequently, attaching yourself to said serious person unserious person is a stupid game. You're playing a very stupid game. You're only going to get a really stupid prize.
Can we talk about, the fact that people who are severely traumatized, probably in their youth, don't emotionally mature past the age of traumatization, and so I'm not making a judgment on you, but I think it's a lot to expect people with the emotional maturity of an 8 or a 9-year-old to make rational adult decisions.
I think if you still have the emotional maturity of an 8-year-old when you're 25 and a stripper and a whore, then prostitute. Sorry. I think if you've reached that level, then all you do is play stupid games and win stupid prizes. And the fact that you're not willing to acknowledge that doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is a marker of insanity. But I'm not expecting deep-seated emotional intelligence here. I expect some stimulus and response learning.
But I think that's Sean Baker's point, is that these people are out there in the world, existing and toiling and bumblefucking through life, and that we should not expect them to make good, sane, rational, moral decisions.
See, I'd rather not demean people. I'd rather not think that lowly of them. I'd rather not. Hold on, look. You can say that I might, take some moral high ground on occasion, and yes, it gets windy up here all alone.
But flies a kite in isolation.
Hang on. But my stance is not and has never been that it is impossible for someone to grow. I expect more out of people, fictional and real, because I know it's possible for them to do so. Because if all you aspire,
I'm the really cynical one on this podcast.
You are. Look, man, you and I have the layers thing going on here. The surface layer is I'm the cynical jackass who can't take anything seriously and hates everything. And you're the upbeat guy who doesn't mind the jingling keys. We go one layer deeper and you resent the jingling keys. And my response is, can we use the jingling keys to get people up? Like, can we...
You're not wrong. You know what's funny? I'm like a lapsed Catholic, and my faith is the belief humanity is good. I have watched, I have tried, and I have been left wanting, and I'm tired of being hurt and disappointed by the expectation that people will grow and mature. If it happens, great. I'm just sick and tired of being that guy wanting it to happen for people and people adamantly refusing and then yelling at me to having the expectation in the first place. So I look at a movie like
really the last part of that kind of really sucks. When someone's response to you expecting good or better of them is just, well, how dare you have expectations of me? Like, so that's where you're falling apart.
Anora, and I think that's why I'm not connecting with Anora the way you expected me to, or that I think the way the rest of the world seems to be, is I'm looking at these people going, they are acting baseline. They are baseline for these kinds of people. I expect no more of them. I expect no less of them. And I don't understand why this story, as it's presented, has people going, oh my God, it's the best movie of the year.
I can give you
say it is the most well done. Like,
I
that
can give
to
you,
me is baffling.
There's two kinds of people for whom that is true, who are saying that. One is the deep film nerd who can get deep into the craft and deep into the performances and the dialogue and all of that stuff and go, you know what, this is really great. And I don't think that's an unfair way to look at this movie. Here's the other kind of people who are really just bowled over by this thing. These are the idiots who are gut punched when the kid goes, well, thanks for making my last trip to America memorable. And they go, oh, he never loved her. Like, no shit.
Do you think it's a generation of people raised on Pretty Woman thinking that's reality?
Yes. Pretty Woman, Twilight, whatever the else.
Boy. Okay, I can't
done
say this
irreparable damage. Irreparable.
I don't know if you're reading my mind right now, but if you are, what have God wrought?
God is not present for this part, my friend. We did this to ourselves.
No shit. Yeah. There's a whole other conversation. There's a whole other conversation to be had here about ego and psychology and the way that we raise boys and girls, at least in Western society, and it's sort of seeping through Anora. And again, it kind of bringing me back to a place of but I guess, but I guess that's me. And the vast majority of people are going, oh my God, he should have been better, and they should have been in love, and they should have killed the parents and stolen the plane. And all right.
The number of, I mean, this is sincerely, there's a number of people who watched this and the first half of this movie are like, what a great love story.
Yeah.
Because
these are the people that think the Joker and Harley Quinn are, relationship goals.
You are not wrong, but that's a lot of people. And the number of people who we've done it doesn't matter that she's a stripper and a prostitute. or that he's a man-child playing video games in his underwear. He comes from money, and they fall in love because we have so lost the ability to make sound moral judgments. And I don't mean that. Let me be very clear about this. Hang on, because
Sure, yeah.
When I say a moral judgment, I don't mean looking at someone and going, you're a bad person. I don't mean looking at someone and going, I am superior. I don't mean castigating someone publicly or saying that they're going to hell. I mean the ability to make the moral judgment that I am a person. I am not stupid. I can look at you, your behavior, your choices, and make a reasonable assessment. That's not, we have done as a society such a job of going, no, you can't do any of that. You must be open. You must accept their truth. Which is frequently not even close to the truth. You must accept them and their choices and who they are and what they're doing. And until you are actually brained over the head by a hammer, you really shouldn't judge that person who said he has candy in his van. And this is unbearably stupid. And the number of people who, again, watch the first half of this movie and are genuinely taken in by what a wonderful story because they lack the ability or the prescience to actually make a legitimate moral judgment about what's going on here. This guy is nothing but a frequenter of drugs, alcohol, and strip clubs and pays for sex. How do you think that's going to go? And you can't judge until you are suddenly bleeding on the side of the road, blindsided.
Let me throw this in there real quick. The amount of people probably struggling with our review right now going, but sitting around and playing video games and being a pair of pets, because I'm saying like she's his pet, but they're both pets. They were he's being cared for with doing nothing by his parents, and he is in turn sharing that care with her. They're both pets, and the amount of people looking at two pets licking each other and going, that's it, that's the life for me. I don't want to do it now because I want to talk about movies, but I think there is an interesting discussion, possible research paper to be had about what happened in this society that so many people came to the conclusion of, I give up. I don't want to have goals. I don't want to have aspirations. I don't want to progress. I don't want to evolve. I want to be a pet. And I'm not making a moral judgment because I know people like that and I don't want to judge them. But I do think it's interesting that we went from the greatest generation to the fucking pet generation.
Well, there is
in what, 50 years? No, we're about 70 now.
We're closer to 80.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I mean, again, that's something we can just talk about endlessly, and it's not really the purpose of what we're doing here, but there's craft elements to Anora to close this up. I echo your sentiments on the acting. The dialogue doesn't feel like it's scripted dialogue, so big thumbs up, but the story, such as it is pretty weak. And if you're the kind of person taken in by the opening third to half of this movie and go, oh boy, isn't that so brilliant? And isn't it great that they're in love? You disgust me. Okay, that's a bit.
I want to say something nice about the editing really quick. I was really taken in by the editing because there's a lot of quick cuts, but not the kind of quick cuts that make you think you're watching action when you're not. I mean, It was like the amount of footage they shot with this. It reminds me of like the Patton Oswalt bit of like, oh, I shot so much footage. Oh, the footage I shot. Like, my God, the budget on this was $6 million. By the way, it's wildly profitable. It made 32.5. They spent $6 million on this, shot endless amounts of footage, cut it up all over the place, and it looks seamless, and it didn't give me a headache. Bravo.
I think there's only like 2 sequences where I kind of got a little bit fed, like not jiving with the visual style. But it's when they're doing the drive around looking for the kid. And there's a lot of like slightly too long tracking shots of them in the car when nothing's happening. But no, I'm with you. Like there's some really humorous editing that goes on in a lot of this, actually. Like the smash cut to her going from screaming to gagged. Again, I got a giant laugh out of me.
Rob showing us his kinks once again. All right, I got my one in.
I will not respond to that. Just in service of not derailing this podcast entirely.
Hey, all right. Moving on. You ready to talk about the next movie?
Oh, God help us.
Emilia Perez.
You know, I'd really like to just get a...
Emilia Perez is a 2024 Spanish-language musical comedy crime film written and directed by Jacques Audiard. The French production is based on Audiard's opera libretto of the same name, which was in turn loosely adapted from Boris Razon's 2018 novel Écoute. The film stars Zoe Saldana, Carlos Sofia Gasson, Selena Gomez, Adriana Paz, Mark Evanier, and Edgar Ramirez, and quite possibly Edgar Ramirez's best role ever, which says a lot about how shit of an actor Edgar Ramirez is.
He is one of those guys who got the push, and then we all realized he sucks, like Taylor Kitsch or Channing Tatum, or I'm waiting for Miles Teller to hit that wall, and God willing, he will at 40 miles an hour.
I'm going to read through this really quick so we can get into this. The film had its world premiere May 18th, 2024 at the main competition of the 77th Cannes Film Festival, where it competed for the Palme d'Or, winning the jury prize and the Best Actress Award for its female ensemble. It was theatrically released in Path in France on August 21st, 2024. It became the second most nominated film in Golden Globe history, with 10 nominations at the 82nd ceremony, winning 4, including Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. The first time a non-English language film won the category. And Best Foreign Language Film, while Gasson became the first trans woman to be nominated for Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. Additionally, it was named one of the 10 films of 2024 by the American Film Institute and was selected as the French entry for Best International Film Feature at the 97th Academy Awards. So we had to talk about it, despite Robert's protestations. If you're wanting to watch it, it's currently on Netflix. Have fun with that. So let's get through this plot synopsis and let's talk about this movie. 50 words or less. You can do it. I have faith in you.
You really shouldn't. All right, so we mostly follow a lawyer in Mexico played by Zoe Saldana who is not happy with her work because she gets rich people off of crimes. She's then abducted by a cartel, the head of which tearfully confesses his desire to become a woman. And he wants Zoe Saldana to facilitate this. In service of making a lot of money, she does. He then fakes his own death, traumatizing his wife and children.
Who's played by Selena Gomez.
Whose Spanish is... Uy.
Whose Spanish has... Look, this movie isn't universally loved. I think it's as much hated as it is loved. And part of the reason why it's hated is because everyone thinks Selena Gomez's Spanish is an insult to Spain, the Spanish language, and and everything... Like people are like, oh my God, stop speaking Spanish, you whore. Like people hate her Spanish in this. It's pretty amusing.
I'm not gonna say hate. I'm just gonna say the following. Like I have a pretty good ear for accents speaking English. When I can tell who's speaking Spanish without seeing them speak Spanish, like there's something there.
I think they tried to take her Spanish card away from her and said that your name now is, Selena White.
Just White?
Yes. You're no longer allowed to be a Gomez. All right. Now that I've done making quasi-racist remarks, continue.
Okay. So we flash forward 4 years where this murderous cartel boss, now going by Emilia Perez, finds Zoe Saldana again and goes, I sure do wish I could see my children again. How about you facilitate that? So we'll go back to Mexico. We'll go back to the same town we were in. So Zoe Saldana goes to where they had them stashed in Switzerland and tells Selena Gomez and the kids, this is a long lost cousin of your dead husband. And she, bleh. So they all go, it's so badly explained. So they all go back there. Friction arises because the kids think, okay, this is just my fun aunt, and Emilia Perez like, yay, I get to be a dad again. And Selena Gomez looks at this woman and this person goes, yeah, fine, you stay over there. You stay over there. Around this same time, Zoe Saldana and Emilia start a nonprofit designed to help people figure out what happened to family members who were disappeared by the cartels. Prominent among them, the cartel this jackass ran, but I'll get to that. This becomes a little bit of a problem. This ultimately becomes a problem when Selena Gomez is ready to remarry. She's got another man in her life, and turns out she was cheating on. She had not been a faithful wife, but cartel people in charge of cartels are known for their upstanding morals, right? So, but Emilia reacts very badly to this. You can't take my children. They're not your children, you old dyke, I believe is the exact words Gomez shouts.
That is lest anyone yell at Robert, that is a quote. Word for word.
Yeah. Because, you see, Emilia Perez has started a bit of a relationship with someone who went through their nonprofit organization, and I'm sure wasn't someone that, Perez had killed, right? This whole thing is gross. So Selena Gomez takes the kids and leaves. And then they wind up kidnapping Emilia, ransoming her for $30 million. Zoe Saldana gets all the old sicarios together. There's a big shootout. Selena Gomez winds up realizing that Emilia used to be her husband.
Well, yeah, Emilia's been shot, and she's lying in Selena Gomez's arms, and she starts to talk about the first time I met you, and like, hey, wait, the first time I met you, you were a dude. Oh, shit, you're that dude.
So then they all die in a fiery car crash, and I am not exaggerating that.
And I hate that other people do this to you, but there's a detail here. So Selena Gomez, mid-car ride, starts to have a crisis of conscience and says, stop the car. I don't want to do what we're doing anymore. I just realized who this person is. And Edgar Ramirez is like, quiet, you.
Edgar Ramirez goes, the bullets have started flying. It's a little late to try and push the rewind button here.
Cat's out of the bag, pal. And Selena Gomez, being a hysterical woman, decides to cause a car crash.
Yeah.
And this car, being imbued with Hollywood magic, rolls, flips, and then blows up like the fucking Death Star. So they're all dead.
So then Zoe Saldana starts raising the now orphaned boys because there are no consequences for her character.
Along with Madame Web.
And the city that had been terrorized by this guy honors him as Emilia Perez with song and a float to close the movie. And I find that morally grotesque, but
okay. So let me
Can I tell you, Mark, why I knew you would like this movie after I saw it?
Okay. Why did you think I would like this movie? I have a question for you when you're done, by the way.
Okay. This movie is very gay. And I don't mean that as a pejorative. I mean it as a descriptor. Sure. You like gay movies.
I do. And I'm not ashamed about that. You hate musicals. Is that part of what the problem here with this movie was?
It didn't help.
Okay. I, for one, love musicals, and it's one of the things I really like about this movie. Much like Cuckoo, if you go back to our triple feature on Strange Darling, Cuckoo, and The Substance, I talked about how, while I wasn't in love with Cuckoo, Cuckoo was one of the most interestingly made movies of last year. I have much the same thing to say about Emilia Perez. The cinematography, the editing, the shot selection, are all very interesting. The blending of certain shots. I thought this was a very unique and from a cinema point of view, a very satisfying product to engage with. I can see why this got nominated for Best Picture because the best
it's super
picture,
gay.
Stop it. Because because Best Picture should be a reflection of the best made movies at a minimum. And this is not content-wise. I'm not speaking to content necessarily or theme. I'm speaking specifically of the physical craft elements. It's one of the best made movies I've seen in the past calendar year. And again, all of these were 2024. It's up there with Cuckoo. It's up there with like Furiosa in terms of pure craft elements, physical craft elements. Some of the other movies that we talked about in our year-end review, there were just some beautifully made movies, beautiful uses of the medium. And I believe Emilia Perez is like top 5 in that category. No questions there. In terms of being a musical, I thought it was very different from any kind of musical I'd seen before. The way they blend sort of, so Joker stops the movie fucking cold and says, and now we're going to do a sing and dance thing from like the late 60s, early 70s. Now we're back to raping the Joker. All right. That's the Joker. We commented about that, about how it's not seamless. It's very jarring. There's a lot of problems with the way they used the musical elements in Joker. This is the exact opposite. There are like almost like seamless transitions into musical because a lot of musicals have this problem. Like I love Les Miserables, but Les Miserables kind of goes from like we're talking, we're engaging, and now I have to yell, sing at you. I have to tell you about the master of the house. That sort of a thing. And this is more like you don't realize you're in a fucking song until you're halfway done, and Zoe Saldana is doing a dance on a table in some sort of velvet fucking outfit she's wearing.
A Joker suit, believe it or not.
Yeah. I was really like the story I have zero interest in, but I was taken in by all of the other craft elements of the movie. I really as a person who just likes to watch movies and kind of appreciate how they're made, there was a lot of draw to Emilia Perez for me. And I really like the songs in it. I like the way they were performed. I like the choreography. This is more so than Anora. Like if a weirdo movie has to win Best Picture, my vote right now is for Emilia Perez. My actual vote is for Dune, but that's neither here nor there. So
we both know your real vote is for the substance, Mark. It's okay. You can be honest.
If it gets nominated, it's not going to though.
It should.
It should. Yes, and if it gets nominated, then I want the substance to win. But I want to talk about the makeup in this movie. Zoe Saldana is an attractive woman. She was fucking Gamora in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. She plays, Blue Cat Lady in Avatar. She is an attractive, lithe, athletic, gorgeous, feminine, wonderful-looking woman. They made her look haggard and she looked like me after New Year's. Just like I hadn't slept, and God knows how long. I was pushing myself too much. Like she looks like the character she is portraying. Like she has had the zest for life beaten out of her. She is wearing it on her face. You can kind of see it in the way she carries her body. Like what a wonderful performance by Zoe Saldana in this thing.
Yeah,
it was kind of the glue keeping it all together.
Yeah, she's getting, she got some awards out of this one, including the Golden Globe, and I think that's one of the Golden Globes, if memory serves. I think she got supporting for this instead of lead because Demi Moore got lead.
Okay.
But I completely agree. Like Zoe Saldana's acting in this is really one of the highlights of the whole experience.
It's one of the best things about it. And like I said, the makeup job on her, phenomenal. Selena Gomez sucks. She's just
that's
terrible.
A bit strong.
And she's like Selena Gomez, maybe, but Selena Gomez is the least believable person in this movie. I felt like
you're gonna make me say something that's gonna get us kicked off of YouTube if you say that again. So please don't.
Selena Gomez's performance in this made me feel like Peter Griffin when he's watching Meg's play, going, "I'm very aware I'm watching a performance." And never mind her Spanish. I did not love Selena Gomez in this. She was almost like distractingly bad, and she's like, it's, and I think it's because the best thing about Selena Gomez is her deadpan delivery, and here she has to kind of emote and be hysterical, and it's just not believable. I did not find her. I found her off-putting in this movie. I'm fine with. Let me make sure I have the actress's name correct. I'm fine with Carla Sofia Gasson. I think she puts on a perfectly serviceable performance. I think the makeup job they did with her was really, really good. I don't really have much to add beyond that. As far as the story goes, there was no story in The Last Showgirl. There was no story in Anora. There was no story worth telling in Emilia Perez.
Yeah.
This was kind of like a telenovela gone bad. You know?
You're not. That was kind of the thing. Like there was one point watching this movie when I went, boy, we're just really leaning into the Mexican soap opera of this whole thing, aren't we?
Yeah. That's it is. And
we're Shadow the Hedgehog to opine from behind the fourth wall that Zoe Saldana should kill all of them because she's not a prize to be won. Like it's something like that.
Would have made the movie infinitely better. Last thing I'll say, so I can let Robert say his piece. None of these are going to win. Well, Anora might win best screenplay, but none of these are going to win for best story. None of these have an award-winning story. However, Emilia Perez is definitely held up by the rest of the elements to it, minus Selena Gomez. That I'm okay with it having its place in award cinema. I think it earns it in almost every other area, but the ones that I've mentioned. So I know you had a bunch of problems with this, so I'm gonna do like an on trial here and just go, your witness, sir.
Yeah, I said kind of I'm gonna echo a few of the good things you said. Like, again, Zoe Saldana's acting is really good in this. It's probably the best acting job I've seen her do. Period. Somebody had mentioned, like, boy, why doesn't Zoe Saldana get a lot more work and press? She's like one of the highest grossing actresses of all time. Like, yeah, because she's in Avatar and the Avengers, and she's like the least important part of both of those.
She was also in I Kill Giants. Check out our comic strip.
Okay. But this is easily the best acting job I've seen out of her. Period. So big thumbs up to that. The production design I can get behind in places. Again, I am not a fan of musicals as a general rule. The way this movie kind of lures you into the music, you have to really get a fine-tuned ear for the rhythm of their speech before you realize, oh, we're starting a musical number most of the time. Once you're hip to that, you start to pick up on it a lot sooner, and it gets to be a lot less interesting a gimmick. But I do completely agree that this isn't as jarring with its musical numbers, minus one or two. There's a couple of them that I think are a little bit much in some respects. But most of them sung by, Emilia Perez. Anytime that happens, I tend to tune out because yeesh. Not a singer. But the songs themselves, they get across the narrative points they're making. And so credit to that. Better than anything Lin-Manuel Miranda's done in the last 20 years.
Oh, God, by a country mile.
Just had to throw that out there. Also, because, you remember when we complained about the songs in Moana 2, Mark?
The Moana 2 that's about to cross the $1 billion mark? Yeah, I remember.
It's not going to hit the $1 billion.
It's close.
How close is it? So I haven't looked at the box office in a bit.
You make your yeah, I know. You make your point, and I'll quick look it up.
Okay, well, point being, the guy who wrote the songs for Moana 2 got kind of butthurt about everyone going, boy, these songs aren't very good. And he came out with you just wait a month. Everyone will be singing them. Everyone. Well, it's been a month, buddy. Nobody's singing them.
It's 10 million short of $1 billion.
You know, not good for that. Look, for as successful as that movie is, the songs are the least interesting part of it, and that guy is just bitter about it.
Go on.
So, yeah, the music here is, fine. Fine to good. The lack of narrative cohesion to this movie is galling, and this is from a guy who doesn't mind nonlinear, non-traditional storytelling. When our opening third is, the desperate search for someone who will perform extensive plastic surgery on this murderous psychopath.
Yeah, that got a little meandering. They spent way too long on that.
The middle portion is actually the stuff that kind of works the best for me when they actually do here's the results of all this murderous cartel activity that's gone on and some of the fallout from that. That stuff actually kind of works for me. And then at the end, it's cheap drama between Emilia and Selena Gomez, followed by the world's worst Breaking Bad knockoff ending. There's nothing really here when maybe a fourth of your movie is actually engaging and that's it. Sorry, you've sucked at writing this. So yeah, there's that. That was a big problem. Add to that so much about the actual story being here and the theming and messaging actually repels me as a person. And to culminate this movie with a community that has been abused, victimized, preyed upon, and badgered by this same person a few years ago, to then celebrate them via almost, Saint Perez reverence, I find gross.
Okay, so I got to interject here because, point of order, my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but my understanding was that an element of this movie is that Emilia Perez and Zoe Saldana have formed a charity where they look for missing people. And because of, cartel and Mexico, there's a lot of missing people. And They find a lot of missing people. And
they find a lot of bodies is what they find.
They are missing people. They did not say alive. So I believe the reverence that is being shown towards Emilia Perez is solely about that.
It is.
If you're like, but the cognitive dissonance that these same people lost those family members by this person who then found God and then those people
didn't find God.
Makes no sense to me. Found her conscience, whatever.
Found nothing. Didn't change. I'll yell about that later.
Okay, so if I needed to point that out because people listening to this conversation is, what is the problem here? I just want to make it clear that as the cartel person, disappeared a lot of bodies. As Emilia Perez found a lot of bodies for these people, and that's
found a lot of bodies that were put there by him.
But that's the thing, is they don't know that. They see Emilia Perez as the charitable woman, not as man cartel bad.
When I say this is morally gross, it's for that reason. It's for putting these people in a position where they are unknowingly celebrating a person who massacred them, preyed upon them, dealt drugs to them, beat them, murdered them, because for a 6-month period after extensive plastic surgery, you found bodies that you put in the ground. Get bent. That is morally grotesque.
Agreed.
And that's my objection to it.
But people needed to know all the facets of how you got there, not just the one you were hyper-focused on. You're welcome.
Thanks. And also, my other bit of sort of moral grotesquerie that goes on in this is Zoe Saldana's character, believe it or not. She's the least reprehensible character in this movie. But when a giant chunk of that character is devoted to discussions about, well, what do you want now that you're a rich lawyer? What do you want out of life? Well, I'd like to have kids. Oh, so you want to get married? Well, not really. Oh, you would like to, give birth maybe at some point? Well, it might destroy my womanly figure. Hey, coincidence of all coincidences. The really unfit parents died horribly in a car crash. You get to inherit 2 children.
Hooray! These are for you, McNulty.
Amongst others. So yeah, I hated this movie, man. As a purely viewing experience, as a person, I could not stand it. I found it repellent. Okay. But on a craft level, again, there's a lot of the production that's very good. Zoe Saldana's acting is extremely good. And the music is better than most of the other musical numbers I've seen all year. So I'll give credit where credit is due.
I think as the musicals go, it was better than Wicked.
Given how Wicked was produced and directed, that's not a high bar to clear.
I was going to say it was also better than Joker, but
Everything's better than Joker, except maybe The Crow.
Wrong. Also true. Well, we got didn't even make it to an hour and a half there. We got an hour and 25 minutes we got through this. I think part of that, though, is we didn't have as much to say on The Last Showgirl because you didn't see it.
Sorry.
But we did good here. No, you don't have to apologize. Shit happens. But it's just funny because you and me barely ever go, get things in under 2 hours. And we got through this. We got through this, which I thought was going to. I thought there was going to be a lot more to talk about, but part of that is I'm like, we're not talking about this, we're not talking about this, we're not talking about this. So this is probably the right length for the conversation of what it was I wanted to talk about here. So yes.
Woo-hoo.
All right, so that is our review of Anora, The Last Showgirl, and Emilia Perez. Anora is currently available PVOD. The Last Showgirl is currently in theaters, and Emilia Perez is on Netflix. Watch it after you watch Raw.
Or don't watch either of those things.
Would you rather watch, Emilia Perez or an episode of Raw?
They're about the same runtime. There's marginally less sex on an episode of Raw.
Marginally.
Depends on the day.
All right. What do we got going on this week? So tomorrow, Alexis is doing a TV party for Creature Commandos.
Apparently quite good.
Yeah. And then this Thursday, I will be on Movies That Don't Suck on Some That Do. I'll be doing their year-end review show. And then as soon as I'm done with that, I got to get back and do a TV party for The West Wing Season 1. We'll be joined by Andrew Graham, in theory, Dorian Price, and Jesse Starcher. This is our... And
Mark will have Mark will have a good cry during the course of that review.
I had my moments with I definitely had my moments with The West Wing. It was a rough start, but it found its rhythm about 4 or 5 episodes into it, and then from that point on, I was with the show, and I'm happy to go on this. Jesse and I do all the old TV, and this one was actually suggested. For real, Andrew Graham in I think 2023 was like, I would like to call for The West Wing in 2025. And I actually scheduled it at that time because that's how far out I have to schedule certain things. So Jesse and I do all the old TV shows, and Andrew Graham requested we do The West Wing. So that's what we're going to do for the next couple of months. So I'm excited for that. That's what I got going on next week. Damn You Hollywood is back.
Your discovery of The West Wing also led to you saying the worst thing you've ever said to me.
You are totally President Bartlett. You
called me Martin Sheen, and I am hurt by that.
I didn't call you Martin Sheen. I called you President Bartlett because in the 14, 15 year time that we've known each other, our 14, 15 year friendship, how many times I have been held hostage by you as you prattled on about some bit of arcane knowledge that you have. And I have to go, yes, President, and I can't leave. I have to listen to you.
The supreme irony of you dragging me in chains to sit me down and force my eyelids open, Clockwork Orange style, to watch Emilia Perez. And then to sit there and go, I have kept you at the White House long into the wee hours of the morning playing chess and quizzing you on national parks.
in my defense, I'm not the one nominating these movies for Best Picture.
You're the one making me watch them. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not making you do anything, Alexis. All right. Damn You Hollywood is back next week.
That line works on Alexis, Mark. You know that line doesn't work on me.
We have a sessions coming up. So really funny about this. I'll probably talk about it on the show again. But I'm doing a riff on Strawberry Fields Forever called Pelennor Fields Forever, except that I didn't know how to spell Pelennor, so it's with 2 L's, and now I'm not fixing any of the art.
You couldn't have Googled?
I assumed it was 2 L's. Sue me.
This is how you get no regrets as a tattoo. Like, that same thought process is what leads to that.
You're not wrong. Anyway, so we've got Pelennor Fields Forever this Sunday. We got Wolfman a week from tonight. Skeleton Crew a week from tomorrow. And then a week from Thursday, we have the Metal Hammer Doom Jukebox, the first of the year. Cutie Patootie, Mick Wanamaker. She's going to head up our discussion, our first retrospective that we've done in many years now. We haven't done one in quite some time. We're going to be looking at the life and history of Gwar at her request. So she'll lead that discussion for us. Look, Radulich rule number 47. When you're hot, you get to pick the topics. He said on a podcast about Anora, the Last Showgirl, and Emilia Perez.
Not going to say anything.
It's best you don't. But you can go ahead and do your plugs.
I was going to say that explains why you constantly reject my suggestions, but here we are.
Oh, you're the prettiest girl I know. Please do your damn plugs.
Don't lie to me, Mark. Don't piss on my back and tell me it's raining. All right, you can find me covering.
I gotta behave.
You can find me covering mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. I cover WWE SmackDown on Fridays, UFC events on Saturdays. This last Saturday was the first UFC event of 2025. Full report in the MMA Zone. If you want another review of it, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, where I also preview UFC 311 this week. Currently still scheduled to take place in Inglewood, California. We'll see what the Fires have to say about that between now and then, but the event will go off in some capacity. So tune in for, again, you can find me on that particular podcast. And I will be covering this Sunday. I agreed to cover whatever TNA is doing. So
whatever TNA's limping to the barn with.
I don't watch TNA regularly. Hang on, I'll give you the name of the event in just a second.
Is it Sacrifice?
Genesis.
Oh, yay.
So Sunday, I will be covering TNA Genesis over on 411mania.com, and I don't know what's going on in that particular promotion. So stop by, say hello. Should be an interesting time. And yeah, Wolfman next week, which I'm moderately looking forward to. Leslie Wendell turns the whole thing into nothing but another treatise on domestic abuse, in which case I will mentally check out.
It's just Robert's brain. That's it. I'm out of here.
More than once.
All right. Well, my brain mentally checked out is the phrase that pays here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. So with that, we bring you to the end of our show. For Robert Winfree, I have to go put away laundry. Be well, be safe, and behave.